Hello, communication class. My name is Joshua Powell, and I'm here to discuss why teenagers shouldn't be allowed to purchase aggressive video games. Imagine your kid, let's say 13, goes into a game store and purchases a game like Grand Theft Auto. You don't know that he purchased Grand Theft Auto, and let alone you don't know that he's been playing this game incessantly for 3 months. You find out from his school that he brings the guns in, he threatens his classmates in his classroom. What's your thoughts or feelings? I know my thoughts is that the government needs to create a new policy and when we can prevent our youth from portraying and mimicking actions and purchasing these violent video games. I'm interested in this topic because I know from a gamer perspective that these violent video games can have you mimicking and portraying the actions that they entertain. Because growing up, my game of choice was wrestling. And I know when me and my friends would link up, we would try to imitate and portray the action that we seen from our wrestling game we played. I believe that the U.S. Supreme Court should prohibit all teenagers from playing violent video games and allow them to not purchase these violent video games. During my speech, I will first discuss the problem with teenagers purchasing video games. Second and lastly, I will offer ways in which we can create new policies to restrict our youth from purchasing violent video games. In today's world, unfortunately, violence in video games has gone unnoticed. So much that we don't really push for laws to restrict the teenagers from purchasing these violent video games. I push for this because I believe that violence in video games imitates violence and it leads to aggressive behavior among teenagers. Aggressive video games should be prohibited because it promotes violence among the youth and it tends to lead to long-term aggressive behavior for teenagers and minors. According to Palmer Auto Medical Foundation, teenagers that plays aggressive video games, they tend to engage in fights with peers. Another key note is that people or teenagers that plays aggressive video games, they tend to react in a more hostile way than those who don't spend time playing aggressive video games. One key factor on why I believe that teenagers shouldn't be allowed to purchase violent video games is because gamers are influenced by what they portray or what they see on games. Gamers are so much influenced by these violent video games that they mimic them through real life situations. For example, the Huntington Post reported an incident on which an 8-year-old shot and killed an elderly woman after playing Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 5 is a game that encourages violence and it rewards people for killing other people on the game. Another similar incident was the 1999 Columbine shootings in which 13 students were killed. The two suspects that was involved in the killings, they was linked to playing violent video games such as Call of Duty and Mortal Kombat. Now that you understand the aggressive behavior linked to these aggressive violent games, I want to discuss possible ways we can prevent these catastrophic events from happening. One way I think we must fix this, fix the policies or this issue is that we need to create better policies. The U.S. should require all people under a certain age a birth certificate before purchasing any violent game. Doing so, we'll be able to see what kids underage and what kids shouldn't be purchasing violent video games. Another way is placing violent video games in the same category as child pornography. Placing violent video games in the same category as with child pornography makes it much harder for teenagers or minors to attain the game. Gaming companies have a big influence on who plays games and how kids are able to attain the game. Gaming companies should make the age range higher than 17 for mature games. Making the age range or pushing it up rather makes it hard for the teenagers to be empowered. Making a game at where the age range around 20 or older, it makes the adult and the parent, well, it gives them power, and doing so, it ensures that the availability of these violent video games is left in the discretion of the adults. According to the Federal Trade Commission, 69% of teenagers were able to purchase rated M games. You know, I'm talking about games that has great violence and that has images that are offensive to many adults. I believe making the age range, pushing the age range up, allows us to put a dent in that 69% of the teenagers that were able to buy rated M games in 2003. With that being said, I think it's our job and many other jobs to push and fight for a new policy in which we can be more assertive and we can empower the adults and parents instead of empowering game vendors and gaming companies. I think if we're able to do this, we'll be able to restrict students from purchasing or teenagers from purchasing these games. To wrap everything up, I first discussed the problem with teenagers buying violent video games. I talked about the aggressive behavior linked to playing aggressive video games. Second and lastly, I discussed the policies we could create to restrict teenagers from buying these games and how we can allow ourselves to be more assertive with creating policies. With that being said, I think with all the violence around the globe, I think aggressive video games is the last thing we want our teenagers to, have their hands on, and we want to make sure that they don't have long-term aggressive behaviors and have to suffer from any events that that I mentioned earlier. I'm gonna leave you with this last quote from Margaret J. Wheatley. It goes like this. Aggression only moves in one direction. It creates more aggression. Thank you all.